Well, it was 8 hours in a Metro mom's life, but it seemed like a lifetime. She thought her son was missing when the cab that was supposed to bring him home from school never arrived. That's how Metro school districts get some homeless children to school. Call for Action uncovers how it's costing innocent families, school kids, and you.
Well, the financial price tag is steep. Foreclosures cost all of us, but it's the emotional price tag that's impossible to measure. It's a sobering walk to work to see all the signs of foreclosure, from the signs on homes to the signs on children's faces.
It's hard because nobody likes seeing people cry.
Maureen tries to hold back the tears in front of her children so 11-year-old Maurice can keep his focus on football.
My team named the Warriors. And this year we might win.
But so often these days, the focus is on his mom's battle to win back her peace of mind.
It's been really hard. I'm trying my best. I'm trying really hard to keep working and to keep them in school, and it's getting harder and harder.
Maureen tries to focus on putting one foot in front of the other, but it's hard when you're a single mom, working 2 jobs, trying to get back on your feet. The roof over Maureen's head was torn away when her landlord didn't pay the mortgage. In the Hickman Mills area, renters are being foreclosed upon, leaving entire families like Maureen's homeless.
I started getting knocks at the door, and people tried to come in while I'm still there.
Just, you know, real gut-wrenching stories.
Deidre Anderson is the Hickman Mills Director of At-Risk Programs and Grants and sees the domino effect of foreclosures on a daily basis.
It's just extremely difficult, and as a school district, we don't have the resources.
As budgets are being cut and services slashed, the district is spending money it doesn't have for taxi cabs. The tab for the cabs last year, $160,000.
It's killing us all. It's killing us.
State law restricts how a school district can transport the kids. Rural districts rely on school buses. The state says urban districts rely on cabs to get homeless students to class. The district tries to keep homeless kids close to their home school to ensure some stability in a chaotic life.
If you don't help homeless families, they're at greater risk of substance abuse, they're at greater risk of child abuse, they're at greater risk of committing crimes.
The district does what it can, but it's difficult. The district lacks basic social service agencies. The closest youth shelter is 45 minutes away.
There's no reason a kid should have to be 45 minutes from their school when there is so much abandoned property.
It's a mind-boggling dilemma that has the district searching for answers. And while cabs are the answer right now, sometimes that doesn't work. Maureen's son Maurice didn't arrive by cab like he should have after school.
Well, do you know if
for 60 frantic minutes, Maureen scoured neighborhoods searching for her son. An hour later, a young girl reunited mother and son.
Well, you made her scared, boy. I was looking for you.
11-year-old Maurice didn't understand all the commotion. He stayed late at school just to get extra help with math.
I did not know what to do because I missed my cab.
So the young boy went to his friend's home because he doesn't have a home to go to.
I don't want to bother my mom.
Just an hour after this mom ended her frantic search for her son, Maureen got the call she's been waiting for. The key to starting over
it's finally home.
Now lies in Maureen's hands.
It'll be a new start for me, a new start.
This time it's tears of joy as Maureen and her children are no longer homeless.
Okay.
Now, this is just one day in the life of a homeless family. A family of 4 in a pool of 13,000 homeless Kansas Cityans. One happy ending, there are thousands more to go.
Wow.
That's so incredible. All right, so what happens now? What can be done about this?
Well, that's the big issue right now. The school districts are hoping to work with some of these shelters to bring the needs and the services to where there is the greatest need. But, of course, they need the community, and they need the community fast.
It makes so much sense.
Very eye-opening. Well, imagine losing your home even though you sent in your payment.
Oh, it can happen, especially if you live in Missouri. Call for Action's Jen Strathman explains how to keep it from happening to you.
Well, it is so hard to imagine $3 could make a difference on a $180,000 investment, but it can help save your home.
This would be my pride and joy. This room took me a very long time to decide on the colors and the carpet.
From floor to ceiling, fresh colors and a fresh design greet you in every room of Angelica Taylor's home. Angelica brims with pride when she talks about how she's turned the house around.
My basement was actually salmon shag carpet.
The past is gone, but the future is not as bright as you'd think.
I've done so much work to the house to make it Because to me, it's not a house, it's my home. I mean, I've personalized it.
In a matter of days, those personal touches were gone and in the hands of someone else.
I don't understand how I go from I'm on a payment agreement to your house is sold.
It's not the deal Angelica expected when she moved in, or the deal she expected when she fell on hard times last fall. Foreclosure even seemed a remote possibility in May, when Angelica worked out a deal to repay her loan.
I had seriously, absolutely no idea. I was completely flabbergasted when I called and they said, your house was sold.
This kind of stuff has to stop.
Attorney Stephen Majors is reviewing the case for Angelica. The company at the center is a name Majors says he knows well.
My practice, probably 75% of the time, the name Wells Fargo is right there at the top.
Wells Fargo and Angelica agreed to a new payment arrangement May 4th. On May 13th, Wells Fargo posted a foreclosure notice in the Weston Chronicle. Angelica says she didn't know. So May 21st, she priority mailed her first modified payment.
And maybe this is stupid on my part, but I just assumed I have priority mailed things business-wise several times. I've never had a problem with it not getting there.
Angelica believes her check arrived on time, but she didn't pay extra to have someone sign for it. 6 days after the due date, Wells Fargo called the deal off, but added, quote, there may be other alternatives. Then they sent the check back, and an envelope Angelica says didn't require a signature. By the time the letter arrived and Angelica picked up the phone, the call had already been made for buyers.
The sheriff never came to my house and said, your house is being sold, or absolutely nothing besides the one letter.
Wells Fargo says it sent a foreclosure letter in April, and that loan modification and foreclosure efforts happened simultaneously. And that, quote, there is no grace period if you miss a modified payment.
Wells Fargo never took the courtesy step of calling her and saying, I thought we had this worked out. Why didn't you send a payment?
Missouri law only requires notices to foreclose. It doesn't necessarily go through the courts like in Kansas.
These guys are fantastic at following the letter of the law. But the letter of the law is not always what's right. It doesn't make sense to throw one person out so you can have a vacant house.
So I finished this off.
Back at Angelica's home, the clock is ticking. She thought she had until November 1st, but the latest deadline is Thursday, which is hard for an adult to understand, never mind Angelica's teenage daughter.
And I don't know how to explain to her that, okay, well, I really did make the payment, but they took the house anyways, and so now we have to go.
Angelica is working on that Thursday deadline. There's a simple lesson in all of this. Pay an extra $3 at the post office. It will cover the most premium tracking and signature service because the servicer, or what the homeowner considers the lender, they don't take responsibility for delays in the mail.
It just seems so heartless. Is there any way to take back the foreclosure?
Well, as time runs out, there's fewer options, but they did file a lawsuit today. We have it on our website. They're hoping that will stall it, but they're really kind of running out of time.
As foreclosures rise, cities are trying to figure out who owns vacant property. Kansas City thought it had a solution, but Call for Action found out it's not working. Jen Strathman explains.
The city created a database to track foreclosures, but it's not tracking many homes because the new owners are not playing by the rules.
Leah Hack has lived in her Waldo home for 20 years, but as foreclosures flood her neighborhood, Leah wonders if it's worth it to stay.
Keeps urging me to move out of the neighborhood.
In the last few months, 7 neighbors have moved out in a 2-block area, leaving behind empty homes and a trail of trash. Data we analyzed shows it's a problem in blocks all over Kansas City. Take Sean Clipsham's neighborhood near 29th and Paseo. There are 5 foreclosures in a 3-block area.
I think that the properties, they set a tone for the neighborhood, and there's a sense that nobody can do anything to improve the neighborhood.
Kansas City passed an ordinance to find out who owns the thousands of vacant and foreclosed properties. Starting in May, any property that forecloses or ends up vacant must be registered with the city.
I didn't realize that there was actually a database.
I wasn't even aware that there was such a database.
The database went online August 1st, the same time the city began issuing fines for owners who didn't register. We found there are lots of fines to hand out that could net the city big bucks. We spent more than 4 weeks crunching the numbers in the city database with those provided by RealtyTrack. It's an online company tracking foreclosures. Since May 1st, RealtyTrack lists 817 foreclosures not found in the city database. Of all the foreclosures we analyzed, the database is missing 79% of them.
We don't have, the compliance rate is not as high as we would like it to be.
As code enforcement supervisor, John Parks sees the blight foreclosure brings to a neighborhood. The database was supposed to make his job easier to track down property owners. But doing analysis like Call for Action did isn't a city priority. His 10 inspectors can't even keep up with the pressing code violations.
The caseload is not manageable.
The number of code violations is 2,000 cases higher than last year, yet there's the same amount.
We just haven't been able to add additional staff to help.
So unregistered owners get a free pass until a code violation catches the inspector's eye.
If the neighborhood is turning into a slum, maybe it's better to consider moving.
But it's hard to move away from. It's a problem that's everywhere. Kansas City's been hit hard because of subprime loans in low-income areas. But the foreclosure mess is also hitting Kansas City, Kansas, and eastern Jackson County. And economists say your neighborhood may be next.
I can see the foreclosure problem spreading out.
Kelly Edmiston has been tracking foreclosures for 3 years with the Federal Reserve. He's seeing rates spike in high-income areas.
Surprisingly, in the central part of Lee Summit, we're seeing some foreclosure activity in Merriam and then in parts of Lenexa around Interstate 35 going towards Olathe.
Job loss and a decrease in property values are to blame. One foreclosure is enough to start a downward spiral, leaving cities and neighbors to find solutions before entire neighborhoods are wiped out.
$50 to $500 fines can be assessed for not registering your foreclosed property in time. To see the foreclosure rate in your zip code, go to NBCActionNews.com, click on Save Your Home. Join us Monday during all our newscasts to get the help you need to avoid foreclosure. Call 816-932-HELP starting at 6 a.m. Well, housing counselors could tell you hundreds of stories, all more heartbreaking than the next one. And reporting on this issue, I have heard so many terrible stories. But there is help out there, and that's perhaps the best message. Since every loan was done separately, the problem has to be fixed one at a time.
Hi, Jasmine. You ready to get up?
Marilyn Brooks Penn runs a daycare in her home and came close to losing both.
My whole world was turned upside down.
The downward spiral started last fall. A paperwork and payment mix-up with the state left Marilyn $10,000 short. It put her 2 months behind on her mortgage, but her lender worked out a repayment plan.
They did some kind of a balloon payment, which I didn't quite understand, but I agree with it.
When the balloon payment came due, Marilyn says the lender wouldn't let her out of it. So she turned to a HUD housing counselor for help. But they say the lender didn't seem willing to help them either and put Marilyn's home up for sale.
I started panicking. There's somebody here in our office that had a contact by some miracle with FDIC. They were able to intercede and go get that sales date stopped.
When Marilyn got news, she was on her way to a bankruptcy attorney. She'd already given up hope.
I was so nervous. I couldn't even use the phone. I had to pull over and just was shaking.
The housing counselor is hopeful the worries are behind them and they can work out a deal.
We were successful. My fear being how many other Marilyns are out there that are trying on their own and giving up hope.
Well, hundreds of calls have poured into our housing counselors today with desperate stories, each one trying to put an end to foreclosure or a high mortgage payment. It's a call that can help you in most cases, but if you're single with one income and you lose your job, it could mean you're homeless.
Hey, Paul, this is David Jewell.
David Jewell has been his own boss for more than 30 years. This year, he's learning how quickly the banks become